So you're looking for a dog trainer here in Lafayette, Louisiana? Let's talk about what that really means and how to find the right one so you can get out there and enjoy everything this city has to offer with your dog.
Yeah, just picture it for a second. A Saturday morning at the farmer's market and your dog is just calmly hanging out by your side. Or maybe you're grabbing a coffee on Jefferson Street or relaxing at a local brewery. That's the goal, right? And it's totally achievable with the right training foundation. And that's what this is all about. We're going to walk you through the most important things you need to know so you can feel really good and confident about the trainer you end up choosing.
Okay, so where do we even start? Well, before you look at who to hire, you need to understand how they train. The philosophy behind it really matters because not all training methods are created equal.
You're going to hear this term a lot, positive reinforcement, and really it's the foundation of any good modern training program. Sure, it often means using treats, but the bigger picture is that you're building a relationship with your dog that's based on trust. You're making learning a fun game, not a chore.
And you can really see the difference here. When you use reward-based methods, you get a dog that wants to listen and work with you. But with some of the older, punishment-based methods, well, those often rely on fear, and that can actually make behavior problems worse. It can really damage that trust you're trying to build. All right, so we've established that you're looking for a trainer who uses positive reinforcement. So what's next? You need to figure out the format of the training. How is it actually delivered? The best choice is really going to depend on your dog, your goals, and just your lifestyle. You'll see a few common options. Group classes? They're fantastic for puppies or any dog that needs to practice focusing around distractions, like other people and dogs. But what if the problem is at home, like your dog jumping on guests or stealing food off the counter? That's where private, in-home lessons really shine. And then you have board and train, which can give you a huge head start if you're short on time. But just remember, you'll still have to learn how to keep up with the training when your dog comes home.
Here's something you might not know. Louisiana doesn't have a state licensing system for dog trainers. So, how do you tell who's a real professional and who's just doing it as a hobby? This is where professional certifications come in. They are your best signal that someone has really invested the time and effort to learn their craft. One of the most common ones you'll see is CPDT-KA. If you see those letters after a trainer's name, it means they've passed a big, standardized exam covering everything from how dogs learn to training techniques. You can kind of think of this as the certification that proves they have the book smarts and a solid foundation of knowledge.
Okay, now another one to look for is KPA-CTP. This one is a little different because it means the trainer graduated from a very intensive, hands-on program that's all about positive reinforcement and clicker training. So if the last one was about knowing the theory, this one is really about showing they can skillfully apply it in practice.
And a quick note here. If you're dealing with something more serious, like deep-seated fear, anxiety, or aggression, you really want to look for trainers with advanced certifications. Look for things like CBCCKA or IABC-CBDC. These folks have specialized training to handle these tough cases safely and effectively.
All right, let's get into the money side of things. Professional dog training is an investment, for sure. But it helps to have a realistic idea of what things cost here in the Lafayette area, so you know what to expect and can budget for it. So for just a single one-on-one private lesson, right in your own home, you're generally looking at a range between $100 and $175 here in Lafayette. Now, trainers with a lot more experience or who specialize in certain issues will probably be on the higher end of that.
And in this chart gives you a better breakdown of the different packages you'll see. A group class, which usually runs for several weeks, is often your most budget-friendly option. A package of private lessons will cost more, and then you have board and train programs. Those are the biggest investment, and that price reflects the fact that your dog is getting round-the-clock care and intensive training.
Okay, so you've done your research, you've found a few trainers that look promising, now it's time to talk to them. And going into that consultation with the right questions ready is probably the best thing you can do to make sure you're making a great choice.
So here's what you should be asking. First, what methods do you use? You want to hear them talk about positive reinforcement. Then ask them about their credentials and if they do any continuing education. A great trainer is always learning. And this one's key for us. How will you customize a plan for our life here in Lafayette? It shouldn't be a cookie-cutter approach. Also, make sure to ask how they measure progress. And if you're dealing with a behavior issue, ask if they'll coordinate with your vet. That's the mark of a true professional. So let's bring all this home and talk about what this looks like right here in Lafayette. Knowing the local rules of the road and the best places to practice what you're learning is a huge part of your dog's success. Okay, these are basically the non-negotiables for being a responsible dog owner in Lafayette.
First, the leash law. Unless you're in a designated dog park, your dog needs to be on a leash that's 6 feet or shorter. That's pretty much everywhere in public. Of course, the rabies vaccination is required by state law. And just being a good neighbor means being mindful of nuisance barking. That can actually be a city ordinance violation.
Think of these great local parks as your real-world classrooms. Moncas Park is just perfect for practicing loose leash walking when there are lots of city distractions around. The nature trail at Acadiana Park, that's an amazing spot to work on focus with all the new smells, wildlife, and other people on the trail. And of course, the dog park at Parc Pair National is a safe, fenced-in spot to practice that super important recall skill, especially if you go during off-peak hours.
You know, at the end of the day, this is what all the work is for. It's about having a dog that can walk calmly through downtown, a dog that can handle the energy of festival season without getting stressed out, and a dog that can just chill politely while you're at a local brewery. It's about having a real companion.
So are you ready to get started? Picking the right trainer is really that first big step. Hopefully, this gives you a solid framework to make that decision with a lot more confidence. Good luck with your training, and really just enjoy all those amazing moments you're going to have with a well-behaved dog by your side on all your Lafayette adventures.